Hi, you are watching Softvative video. Today's topic is connecting Linksys WRT54G router with E3000 over the wireless network. Hello and welcome to this session. My name is Faisal Masood and today I'm going to cover the topic of connecting two Linksys wireless routers wirelessly. That means connecting those two routers over the Wi-Fi network and not using any Cat5 cable. So now currently we have picked up this scenario where we have two routers from Linksys. One is E3000 wireless Wi-Fi router, and this router is connected with the cable modem, and ultimately that's connected into the internet. Then we have old router from Linksys, which is WRT54G wireless router, and by default Linksys, it doesn't give you the capabilities in the routers which allows you to connect the two routers wirelessly. And since we had this old router, so we flashed the router with the open source utility which is available from DD-WRT.com website. So let me walk you through the process. So in this case, what we did was we flashed the router with the DD-WRT flash, and that gives us additional capabilities which are not available in the default operating system of the router, which comes from the Linksys. So now we have already performed that step, and now our router allows us to use that DD-WRT operating system for that router. And now we will go ahead and configure that router and perform the configuration on this router too, so that it can connect with our existing Wi-Fi network. And in this whole scenario, we won't be performing any configuration changes on our existing router. Now this existing Linksys E3000 router, it performs the DHCP DNS, and it will be the default gateway. And currently we have a WPA2 with the mixed mode setup on this Wi-Fi router. So after the two routers are connected wirelessly, then computers which would be connected to the router 2 through a network cable, they would be able to communicate to this existing network, or the router 2 computers can go to the internet as well. Now these are some of the high-level steps we have to perform. We have to disable the DHCP on the router 2. Then we have to change the Wi-Fi mode to the client bridge mode on the Wi-Fi 2. Then we have to set the wireless network mode to mixed mode, and then we do then we set the security of the Wi-Fi router to WPA2 with the AES enable, and then we'll set the operating mode under the advanced routing to the router mode instead of the default gateway mode, and optionally we'll do some of the configuration. During in the middle of this whole process, we will also perform a site survey through our second router, and that site survey is an additional feature which comes with the DD-WRT flash operating system on this router. So let's begin the process. So first I'm going to launch the Internet Explorer, and on this router 2 I have connected one of my laptop through a Cat5 cable to this router. So now I'm going to access the administration interface by typing the URL 192.168.1.1, and that brings us to this router configuration page. The first thing it asks us to do is to perform the password change. I'm going to change that password here. Now after entering the new username and the password and the reconfirmed password, I'm going to hit this change password button, and that will apply the new password to this router. And then it brings us to this system information page where it shows us the high level information of this router. Now the one important thing is, if you have changed the configuration of the router after you flashed it with this DD-WRT flash operating system, then the first thing before actually performing the configuration is that you reset it to the factory default setting, and that brings this DD-WRT operating system to its default settings. Now based on our steps, the first thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and disable the DHCP. So I'm going to first go into the setup. It's going to ask for the password. I will enter the password, and that will bring me to this basic setup page. Now the first thing we have to do is, under this WAN connection type drop down, it is by default set to automatic configuration DHCP, but in our case this router will be performing only the router functionality, and it will connect wirelessly to our existing Wi-Fi router. So we'll go ahead and disable this connection type for the WAN connection. You can optionally change the router name, host name, and domain name information, but we will leave everything as is for now. In the middle of the page where we have the network address server settings DHCP, and under the section you can see currently the DHCP server is enabled. That means any computer which connects with this router, they would get IP address through its DHCP. But since we will be wirelessly connecting this Wi-Fi router with our router 1, which is a Linksys E3000 router, so we want to disable this DHCP because DHCP is already running on the router 1. So we'll go ahead and disable it. And another thing we would like to perform is we would like to set the time zone to whatever is the time zone we are in. Now I will just go ahead and click apply setting, and that will change the configuration and it will reboot this router. Now we'll just give it a few minutes. Now after the reboot, now we won't be able to directly connect with this router because the DHCP was running, and when we connected our Cat5 cable from our laptop to this router 2, it automatically acquired a local IP address from that DHCP server. Now after turning off the DHCP, now we will go ahead and manually specify IP address from the range of 192.168.1.x series. So in this case we'll just pick 192.168.1.7 and we'll configure it manually on this laptop so that we can connect to the router and perform rest of the steps. Now here you can see we are back to the router administration interface, and we have disabled the WAN connection type, we have disabled the DHCP. Now from here what I'll do is I'll go ahead and click on advanced routing, and under the operating mode drop down I'll change it from gateway to the router, because this router, Wi-Fi router, will be performing the routing function and not the gateway function. So as you can see in this diagram, that this router 2 will be sending all the requests to the gateway inner to connect to the outside network. So after setting it to router mode, I'll just go ahead and click apply setting. I will go ahead and click on wireless tab on the top, and that brings me to the basic settings page. Now under this page, the first thing I'll do is I'll change the wireless mode from access point and I'll make it client bridge. The client bridge is the wireless mode which basically allows this router to work as a client of our existing router. If you would like to see more details, you can click on this help more link, which brings help in a pop-up window, and you can go through the help and understand different modes. Also on the DD-WRT.com website, you can find they have some good articles which explains how you can configure with step-by-step instructions using any of these wireless modes. So I'll just go ahead and close the help, and now I will leave the wireless network mode to mix mode, because that's how our main Wi-Fi router is set up. For the wireless channel, I can set it to auto. I'll just go ahead and click apply settings, and now you can see it brings us back to the basic settings page. Now from here I will go ahead and click on security, and under the security tab I have the firewall as the sub tab. Now under the block WAN requests section, I will go ahead and uncheck block anonymous WAN requests as well as filter ident port 113, and then I will just go ahead and disable the firewall. So I'll leave all those settings as is and just click apply settings here, and in the next step I will go ahead and click on status, and then I will click on wireless, which brings me to this page. I will scroll down at the bottom of this page, and under the wireless nodes section I have an access point section. I will just perform a site survey here, which will bring a pop-up window, and it will show all of the Wi-Fi networks which are available. I'll just click the join button, and that will join it to that Wi-Fi network, and it says successfully joined the following network as a client. So I'll just go ahead and click continue, and that will bring me back to this wireless basic settings page, and you can see it automatically pre-populated the wireless network name as SID with the name of the Wi-Fi network. So I'll just go ahead and click apply settings, and now I will go to the wireless settings tab, and under the security mode I will just go ahead and choose the same setting as I have set up on the first router. So I'll just pick WPA2 personal settings, and then I'll choose AES as the WPA algorithm, and then I will enter the WPA shared key, and again I will hit the apply settings button at the bottom. Now we don't have any MAC filters applied. I'll come to the advanced settings. We don't have any settings here which we would like to change, so I'll leave everything as is. Now WDS is another option how you can connect to wireless routers, but that requires WDS enabled routers on both sides. In our case, we are not flashing our original Linksys E3000 router, and that's why we picked up this process to connect the two routers wirelessly. Now I will go to the services section, and under DHCP use domain I'll change it to LAN and WLAN, which is for wireless LAN. I will disable the DNS masquerade option. I will also disable the telnet, and then I'll just go ahead and click apply settings here. Now we don't want to configure any of the VPN settings, hotspots, or add networks. So now I'll just click on security tab on the top, and you can see our settings are intact. So I'll just go ahead and click on access restrictions. under this page we don't have any restriction or policy set up, so we can leave it as is, or optionally we can apply those settings. Under the NAT/QoS we don't have any settings applied, so I'll leave everything as is. Now I will come to the administration page, and here I'll check the option under web access which says info site password protected. I'll enable that setting, and I will leave rest of the settings at the bottom as is. Now I will just go ahead and click apply settings. Now I will just go ahead into the status section, and if I scroll down I can see some of the information here. We have disabled the WAN, so under the WAN we'll see it as disabled. Under the LAN we can see whatever the different clients are connected with this router. If I go to the wireless subtab, then I can see all of the configuration information here, and under the wireless packet info section you can see it shows that it has transmitted and received some of the packets. In this section, if you see just the errors under received and or under transmitted, that means your connectivity didn't work, so you have to reperform some of the configurations. But if it says okay for some of the packets and the errors are not increasing, then your connectivity is perfectly alright. Now under the wireless node you can see it shows that under the access point it is connected to the other router. So now in order to just do a quick test, I'm going to open up a new tab here. This computer, which is the laptop in my case, is connected through a Cat5 cable to this router too. Now I will just open up a browser and see if I can browse the internet. If I would be able to see a page, then that means these two routers can communicate, and ultimately the clients from this network can browse the internet sites. So I'll just go ahead and type google.com. Now in this case you can see that we got that error message which says that Internet Explorer cannot display the web page, and as you can see it shows the router's IP address and other configuration, and this is the local IP address of the router. So in our case we already happen to have a system running at that IP, so we will just go ahead and specify a different IP address here. So I'm going to specify 192.168.1.7 as the IP address of this router, and also for the gateway we have to specify the router 1 as the gateway for the router 2. So I'll just go ahead and specify that, and here we'll just go ahead and specify the DNS server, local DNS server, and in our case if it's running on the router we can specify the router 1's IP address. Otherwise, if we have a local DNS server, then we can specify the IP address of that DNS server. So now I'm just going to go ahead and click on apply settings, and that will require the unit to reboot, so we'll just give it a few minutes. Now after the reboot I'm going to enter the IP address, the new IP address of the second router, and that will bring this pop-up window where I'll specify the user ID and the password. Now without making any other change, I'll just go back to the browser and I'll specify a URL, and now you can see it brought this google.com website. Now our test shows that we have successfully connected to this first router. Now we can take the backup of the configuration by going to the administration section, and then under the backup we can click on the backup button at the bottom, and then we can save this file. Now from here we can optionally change or apply different configurations and settings, but make sure you reboot the router 2 and always make sure that you test the connectivity from here. So again, just to summarize this whole session, initially we had two routers from Linksys E3000 and the second one as WRT54G, and first we flashed the WRT54G router with the DD-WRT flash operating system, and after flashing it we went into the configuration of the second router, and some of the configuration we did were disabling the DHCP on the router 2, setting up the Wi-Fi mode to client bridge mode, setting up the wireless network mode to mix mode, and using the site survey to connect to the Wi-Fi network on the router 1, and after that going to the wireless security section and then setting up the wireless security to the same as set up on the router 1. And in most scenarios you can use the WPA2 with the AES algorithm, and then at the end you can set the operating mode of the router 2 under advanced routing section of to router instead of the gateway, because the second router works as the router for the devices on that network and connect to the router 1. So that covers this whole session. Keep clicking faisalmassoud.com to see more information. Thanks for watching.